And now the other arcade games of 1983.
Hey guys, I'm Pixel Dan, and these are the other arcade games of 1983. Gyrus, the Konami shoot-'em-up that follows that Space War tradition set by Space Invaders and Galaga. Mr. Do's Castle, it's a game about fighting unicorns. For real. Rockin' Rope, using your harpoon gun and flashlight to reach the Phoenix. So there you go, guys. There are the other arcade games of 1983. They may not have been as popular, but hey, doesn't mean they're not fun.
Dragon's Lair isn't so much a game that you play as it is an interactive cartoon experience that you experience over and over and over again.
And it was just amazing. I loved pretending I could control the cartoon in that game.
The gameplay itself is rather simplistic, actually. It's very much a trial and error, one input per screen sort of thing, but no one had ever seen anything like that associated with a video game before.
I remember when I was a kid in the arcade seeing it in the corner, and it's just amazingly beautiful.
We're used to, pixels and vector graphics. We're not used to actual hand-drawn animation.
It looked like a Disney movie.
He was actually drawn by Don Bluth, who had worked for Disney and later on went to make movies like Secrets of NIMH, Land Before Time,
American Tail.
All Dogs Go to Heaven.
All Dogs Go to Heaven, apparently. I didn't know that one.
But this was not the first game to use a Laserdisc or optical media, but definitely the first big one, the first super popular one.
There were so many people that would gather around the Dragon's Lair console when it first came out, is that it was also one of the first games where they would actually have two monitors. There was a monitor on the top because there were so many people who would watch it, but you couldn't see it, so they'd put it on top of the monitor.
And then I stood around, watch people too, just to see, and other people thought it was hard too. Maybe 2 or 3, 4, maybe not even. I never saw anybody win or do well.
You watch the movie and you're like, ooh, Don Bluth, and then it's just like, bleh, and then you die, and it's like, what the f?
Sometimes they would mix it up, like at one point you hit left and the next point you'd have to hit right, even though it's the same video animation.
The screen flashes for what you're supposed to do very quickly. You know, it'll flash in the direction of the screen where to hit left or right, or your sword if you hit your sword button. If it's set on easy, otherwise you're never gonna defeat the damn game. Damn you operators!
Yeah, Dragon's Lair sucks.
It's QuickTime Events, the game, like 20 years before QuickTime Events became a thing.
It spawned Space Ace. It did spawn another Dragon's Lair 2 sequel later down in the line. And, again, ushered in the Laserdisc arcade game era.
Dragon's Lair was very popular in arcades, and there was hope that it would turn things around from the industry decline of 1983, but it just wasn't enough. Perhaps they didn't hit the sword button in time.
Bluth girls are like the hottest chicks in like cartoon history.
The hot Princess Daphne that Dirk the Daring had to rescue. Oh, what a babe. Man. Whew.
They drew her from Centerfold.
Yes, you can tell.
Daphne was hot.
She was pretty hot.
Daphne was really hot.
Sexy voice.
Oh yeah.
Woo! Save me! Ooh, help me! Save me!
Oh, the key! And you're like, oh, damn.
Yeah, it was a quarter sucker in 2 ways. It sucked the quarters and you were the sucker, like for the quarters. So in both ways, yes.
Keystone Caper, Keystone Kelly is my name. Catching crooks is my game.
Introducing a hilarious new video game. Keystone Capers for the Atari 2600.
Keystone Capers is a game loosely based off the Keystone Cop silent films. The public was clamoring for those.
Oh yeah.
In game form.
It's based upon the old silent film era Keystone Cops. Even though you're not bumbling in this game, you're just kind of sort of jumping and running around, but it's cool.
Gary Kitchen from Activision created it, and they put it out, and it was highly successful. It was one of the big Activision releases. It was released on all the Atari platforms, even the 5200.
You're Keystone Kelly, and you have to go after the robber, hooligan Harry, who's robbing the place.
You are trying to prevent crime in a department store.
It's interesting because there's actually radar on the bottom of the screen to see where Harry is. You have to catch, and he's the robber trying to get away, and you have a limited amount of time to do that. And you have like shopping carts that try to hit you, you have to jump over, and obstacles and stairwells. For the time, it's pretty unique for the system. It's one of my favorite 2600 games.
Crystal Castles is a cool-looking 3D-ish isometric game with another interesting control scheme. You would think that a joystick would be ideal for moving directionally in a game like this, but nope, trackball.
This is one of those few games where it really fits. It really comes in, you know, it would just feel weird to play this game with anything else.
The trackball is interesting because you can go faster with it. But for changing directions, it's not so good.
No, it's
when you're on like a corner, a Bentley, or in the middle.
It's still so satisfying to collect pellets and avoiding trees and all this other great stuff.
The first level's castle in Crystal's Castles spelled out the initials of the highest score achieved on that cabinet, which probably meant that there were a lot of ass castles.
I remember seeing it on Starcade, and it was one of the few actually really good games they had on there.
Crystal Castles is one of the first arcade games with an actual ending. Unlike this sentence,
it's not one of those arcade games that people talk about now, but people really played a lot of it back then. Played Bentley.
The looks were kind of what really drew people to it. A lot of stuff could be average, but looks would draw people to it.
You have a cute hat. See, you should like that little chapeau.
Are computer games here to stay, or is it a fad?
I think computer games are fundamentally different from video games, mainly because computer technology in the home can be extended and become a much broader base of technology.
Electronic Arts, they started publishing games in '83. Pretty big company.
When it first started off, it was very employee-centric.
Published a lot of interesting games in their first few years, and in '83 their lineup was actually fairly solid.
Dr. J versus Larry Bird.
Yeah, with a one-on-one game.
Eventually, you know, Madden and Bird versus Jordan, I think there was a game.
My personal favorite, the Pinball Construction Set by Bill Budge.
So EA was the first to start using album covers for their games.
Electronic Arts was founded by programmers, and these programmers wanted to be respected as artists. The same way that bands had respect for making an album, they wanted games to have that exact same feel.
EA was giving credit where credit was due by crediting them like you would see rock stars on an album.
Similar to how Activision gave credit to the designers on the box art, Trip Hawkins, who created Electronic Arts, he wanted computer software to look like a rock album.
When a game like Mule was created, they took pictures of the programmers behind the game in an artistic style, the same way that an inner sleeve would look on an album from the Beatles or any other album at the time that came out from any band.
You had these weird esoteric artwork on the cover. It was like you were buying like a Pink Floyd album or something crazy from Vangelis. You know, it just had this cool artwork.
They wanted to change the way that consumers viewed programmers. Sadly, this really never took off, but the idea and concept behind it was so cool and incredible that almost every original electronic art program and game that you find is a really cool piece of art that you can pick up and appreciate.
You know, programmers are the backs of these video games. They're the ones that make these things, so we're going to give them their due diligence like they deserve.
While not everybody remembers Mule nowadays, they sure as hell should go back and take a look at what that album looked like, because it really does set a standard for something that should have become commonplace. Respect for the producers of games rather than respect for just the game itself.
They planted themselves in the 80s. By the time you got to like the late 80s, early 90s, they started putting out those sports games. Then they just took over the world and started destroying companies one by one by just buying them out and firing all their workers.
They own everything. They're like Ubisoft. They're one of the big ones.
They started off so well. They were like the nice guys of the industry, and nowadays, well,
I was more of a quarterback club guy.
They're not good.
Please don't sue me, EA.
But I mean, Trip Hawkins, whatever anybody says about the guy when he put together Electronic Arts, whether it be moving into the 3DO later, he definitely tried to change the way things were done in the industry.
And you know, he succeeded for the most part. Unfortunately, his problem was that times kind of changed on him, and he was too far ahead at times.
Donkey Kong 3, otherwise known as When Donkey Kong Jumped the Shark.
Donkey Kong 3 gets a bad rap. I like Donkey Kong 3.
Stanley's the guard of the zoo, and he's trying to protect his flowers from Donkey Kong, who's somehow precariously on two vines above him.
What's kind of weird is you're literally spraying stuff up Donkey Kong's bum.
Yeah, it is a little awkward looking.
You can't aim left or right. You're sort of stuck and screwed. The bugs fly all around you. You can't get at it. You're gonna get killed.
Donkey Kong 3 was so different from the previous 2 Donkey Kong games. The first 2 were platformers, and this was some kind of platformer shooter hybrid.
It kind of was a great mirroring of the classic style of sit at the bottom of the screen and shoot like a radar scope or like a Space Invaders, plus the new style of being able to climb around on things, like, you know, a traditional platformer.
So it's like one of the only standing games out there that you can say each sequel really had nothing to do with gameplay-wise than the predecessor.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Nintendo, keep innovating.
Hey, we get to talk about Namco now,
Oh,
and
for
we're gonna
God's
talk about Mappy. You know what Mappy is? He's a police mouse. It doesn't get any better than that.
You were Detective Mouse, and you would collect things and go through doors, and that's all I really know about it.
He's a member of the Micro Police Force, okay? And the Mukies steal all sorts of valuable goods, and you have to go get them back. And you have to get them back from houses full of trampolines.
These are cat thieves, by the way, right?
Yeah, they're cat thieves. And there's the trampolines. All the houses are full of trampolines.
Mappy was released by Namco, and it was actually built on the Super Pac-Man hardware, but it allowed for scrolling left and right.
It was made by Namco, but released by Bally Midway, which kind of continued their whole relationship with them releasing Namco's games just like Pac-Man in the US.
What's fun about Mappy, though, is you can initially play it and just try to collect everything and move on, but there is actually a very cool multiplier system at play with Mappy. If you collect the items in pairs, the multiplier goes up.
Oh.
But the items are worth different values. So the goal is to start with some of the very small value items like the radios and work up to the high value items like the safes so you can get an insane amount of points.
You don't say.
You know what else is a valuable item?
What?
Microwaves, because back then microwaves were valued.
Mappy.
The original Spy Hunter was created by Midway and had 2 versions. There was a stand-up unit, and then there was a sit-down cocktail unit. Both of them had what, in my opinion, is the coolest controller of all time.
But you're a secret agent, and you have your interceptor machine, and it's not just a standard, racing game like you had before. This one, you get to shoot people.
Had various power-ups like the smoke screen, the oil slick, the missiles.
There's lights on the machine for what weapons you have equipped at the time. Machine guns always lit up, and then once you get the other weapons, they actually light up on your dash. It's fantastic. I love Spy Hunter.
What's kind of neat is while you have the whole shooting and oil slick, the power-up aspect of the game, primarily you would literally bash people off the road when you first started.
You have to protect the civilians in the game, red cars, blue cars, and motorcycles. If you hit them by accident, your points will stop increasing for a while. So you can't have that. You have to destroy the bulletproof bullies, the limousines that try to shoot you, and the tire slashes. Oh my god, the tire slashes are the worst.
I love how the scenery in the game changes from summer to fall to winter, and the winter levels look especially cool, but they're not especially fun to play because it makes it friggin' impossible.
You could even change the car into a boat, which was like really awesome and cool at the time.
The developers originally wanted you to be able to fly by helicopter as well. Unfortunately, it didn't make it into the final cut because of a lack of memory. You would think they would have written an idea like that down before they forgot.
The game is just for points, it keeps looping. However, it has the best title track of maybe any arcade game. The theme from Peter Gunn.
Shut up.
And now, the popular pinball games of 1983.
Ian here with the popular pinball machines of 1983. Cubert's Quest by Gottlieb. Light the pyramid and defeat the enemies in this oddly designed table. Check out those strange flippers. Farfalla by Zaccaria. Butterfly drop targets and a second playfield on this psychedelic Italian import. Joust by Williams. 2-player head-to-head pinball. Score as many points as possible while trying to hit the ball straight through the opponent's flippers. And those are the popular pinball machines of 1983, because there's more to life than video games.